Kansas's multi-year budget crisis has finally led to some real political consequences for some of the Republicans who got the state into the mess in the first place. At least 6 Republican state senators, including Senate Majority Leader Terry Bruce, lost their bids for renomination on Tuesday to more centrist challengers in districts stretching from the Kansas City suburbs to Wichita and rural Hutchinson. 8 state House members succumbed to less conservative challengers as well. Voters also tossed out Congressman Hulskamp, also a Republican. Now, they have been, of course, it's just primaries. They're being replaced by other Republicans, and we'll get back to the long-term consequences of that. But these are some of the politicians who were in the state Senate, also the congressperson, when some of the policies we're going to be talking about in this video were first put into effect, and it's delicious to see them eventually going down because of the resentment and popular opposition to those laws. But why the backlash? What was so bad that many members of the state Senate and even a congressman have lost their jobs? Well, as we've covered in many videos over the course of several years, actually at this point, Governor Sam Brownback came into Kansas. He faced basically no opposition in this state. He was free to do what he wanted, him and the Republicans in the state Senate and state House, and so they did. And they passed tax cuts that were an Ayn Randian dream. Especially the personal income tax was massively slashed. And when that happened, they said, well, don't worry about this, because what's going to happen is now you're going to have so much more money to invest in the economy. It's going to lead to jobs. Businesses are going to flock in, and our economy is going to be booming. But that didn't happen. It's been years now. That is not happening. But what is happening, and is not a surprise to anyone who understands how taxes work, is that since they slashed the taxes, government tax revenue has massively dropped as well. And it turns out that that stuff is actually used to pay for things that people like. And so they're having some problems. Kansas has missed its projected tax collection targets in 10 of the last 12 months, according to the State Department of Revenue. And this wasn't even the worst year, by the way. To stave off the budget crisis, Brownback's administration has delayed millions in planned spending for schools, highway projects, and the Department of Corrections. Kansas fell more than $100 million short of expected tax collections in fiscal year 2016. And that is for just Kansas. On the national scale, it doesn't seem like much money, but it is for a state with not that many people like Kansas. So I went to Kansas about a year ago to cover a protest put together by a national union of teachers. And the schools there are suffering, and people, both Republicans and Democrats that live in Kansas, are incredibly frustrated about it. But it goes beyond just the schools. They talked about highway projects there. There are literally roads which have been paved for decades that are now being allowed to revert back to dirt status because they can't afford to maintain them. Everybody knows that philosophically the Republicans want to bring us back to 150 years ago, but now they want our frickin' roads to be 150 years old again. And thankfully, the people of Kansas who have been hurting since these tax cuts happened are starting to learn. And here is one of the most amazing stats. More Kansas voters said they viewed President Obama's job performance in a positive light than Governor Brownback's. And this is not a super lib state we're dealing with here. So now we have the consequences. We have the primaries, a number of Republicans losing their positions, more centrist Republicans taking the spots. Look, if we really dig deep on those Republicans, they're going to turn out to be pretty conservative too. But hopefully they'll learn the lesson, at least in regards to taxes. And this is Kansas. They're not going to suddenly elect a ton of Democrats. There's only so much that they can change so fast. But hopefully, the lesson of this ridiculous tax cut experiment will spread far and wide, and we can avoid us having the rest of the country suffer in a similar fashion, perhaps if a Republican president were to get into office. And that's my final judgment.